Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you live from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app and all the other places all over the world. We're also seen right now live on Facebook Live at the WHPC, and I welcome your comments and interactions as we go through the program. So welcome this morning. This morning, this program is later archived on Spreaker.com. Hi there, my name is Rabbi Pearl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends on when you are listening or watching. And right now, I am waving to everybody in the studio, everybody out there in the wide world out there. Of course, we must remember that our program has expanded from 30 minutes to now 1 hour. And as you can see, we start at 8 a.m. through 9 a.m. And really, it's an honor and a pleasure, and I'm humbled by the fact that so many people get up early now on Sunday morning and join us. So even if I don't have your name right now, I welcome you on the radio, on the Facebook, and throughout the world. So our first conversation today, we do have some very important issues to talk about today, about saving someone's life, Dr. Stuart Hissler's life, and we'll talk more about that. But first, I'd like to continue our subject matter. We were talking about animals. And the question we have today is, can animals sense the paranormal? From being able to detect certain illnesses to exhibiting strange behaviors days before an earthquake, animals exhibit extraordinary senses. Some have even described animals as possessing a sixth sense. That means kind of a gut feeling when someone is about to die or something just doesn't feel right. While there are, of course, scientific explanations for some of these phenomena, such as a super keen hearing or superior eyesight, scientists are still searching for the explanations behind many premonitions animals seem to have. This has led many to believe that animals have the ability to see the spirits. When I was in yeshiva as a student, I was taught that if you look at a cow and you see the back of the cow is always swishing its tail back and forth, and I always thought it was something to do with flies, but I was told that no, the animals are able to see evil spirits flying around, and that's why the cow, moves his tail back and forth. But I'm going to, this morning, examine this whole question from a Torah perspective. From a biblical perspective, it seems that the answer is pretty straightforward. We learn in the book of Numbers, which was only read yesterday, how God was angry at this individual called Bilam, who had set out to curse the Jewish people, and he sent an angel to station himself on the road before this Bilam. And we're told that Bilam's donkey was able to see an angel and turned aside, and eventually stopped altogether, only to be beaten by this Bilam. And God performed a miracle and opened the donkey's mouth, allowing her to complain to Bilam about his cruelty. So a careful reading of the verses shows that in order for the donkey to speak and for the Bilam to see the angel, God did a special miracle. He opened up the donkey's mouth and Bilam's eyes. However, the donkey seeing the angel is stated as in a matter-of-fact way, with no indication that it was anything out of the ordinary. So we clearly see that it's absolutely true that animals can see things that we can't. The foremost biblical commentator, Rashi, explains that God permits an animal to perceive more than people. Since people possess intelligence, they would become insane if we were able to see all those demons at all times. Although in this case we're discussing an angel, not a demon, the principle, of course, remains the same. Animals are granted the ability to see spiritual entities that are invisible to us. Let me continue this idea. It has been observed that animals can often tell when a person is about to pass away. In this regard, there's a fascinating statement in the Talmud, and the sages teach, if the dogs are crying for no reason, the angel of death has come to the city. If the dogs are laughing, Elijah the prophet has come to the city. This applies only if there's no female dog around. Obviously, that could be a different reason why the animal is laughing. Many, but not all, understand this to mean that dogs laugh or cry because they are aware, they're actually aware of the presence of an angel of death or Elijah, the prophet. Now, isn't that interesting, Kim, that so much talk about about the animals being able to see and hear, and you see, it makes such a difference. What difference does it make? What difference does it make what I'm talking about now? There is indeed Jewish sources for animals having much finer senses and being able to perceive the paranormal and the supernatural. Now, this awareness is very humbling, showing us just how much we do not know. But it also helps us to internalize that there really is a spiritual dimension beyond what we can perceive. If the animals can be able to see this, perceive this, we also have to be training ourselves to be able to see beyond and think beyond and have a deeper realization of the world around us. So there is much more than meets the eye. Now, what really has inspired me to talk about all of this is because, you know, as well as we all know, in the recent days there's been such a, should I call it a spike, in shark sightings off the coast of Long Island. So let me share with you a little bit about sharks in the water, but sea monsters in the Talmud. Researchers say why there's such a increase of sharks around Long Island. I'm not going to make that joke about them, seeing many more lawyers, but the truth is, researchers say that many species of shark are thriving because there's a rebounding population of the fish, a lot of fish out there that they like to eat, and the warmer water brings out the sharks. So for most of history, sea monsters were considered amongst the greatest perils of sea travel. Of all the millions of creatures that exist in the world, none inspire quite as much wonder and awe as the beasts of the deep. Think of the terrible crocodile that was found in Israel until the last century. It reached up to 20 feet and fears no predator. The great whales are the largest animals of all, reaching up to 100 feet long and weighing up to 150 tons. The deep harbors offer other kinds of animal life, to huge sharks, as we've seen, and voracious eels. All these mysterious creatures inspire man with awe as he marveled at them, right? As I remember, one of my favorite trips was to go to the zoo, was go to see the aquarium. And then, who's been to the aquarium in Coney Island? It's an amazing place, and everybody stands there in awe of these huge fishes and sharks and whales. Just to continue this, man, obviously, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's something we can learn from this. I would put it this way, man versus the sea monsters. The sperm whale weighs around 80 tons and possesses teeth 6 inches long. Man, at around 150 pounds, and with very small teeth, nevertheless has able to manage to hunt and kill whales. Crocodiles reach up to 20 feet long and are covered in these massively thick coats of armor, as well as possessing a mouth of razor-sharp teeth. Man, soft and defenseless, farms crocodiles to produce handbags. Killer whales are the most fearsome predators in the ocean, consuming seals and dolphins. Man, who could find it difficult to kill almost anything with his bare hands, puts killer whales in an aquarium and makes them leap through hoops. Now, how does man achieve all of this? Because we have a special gift granted by God that's called intellect. It is its intellect that enables man to rule over these monstrous creatures that far outstrip him in size. The point I'm sharing is man is we're not to look at ourselves just as another animal. We are a being of an entirely different nature. And the more we think about this, causes us to praise the Almighty for the wonderful gifts that we've been bestowed upon, and most importantly, to use our brains and our seichel intellect in the proper manner. There's a very famous Talmudical story of a sage, Rabbi Hanan. He describes a sad plight of a group of sailors who were eager to escape the uncertainties of a storm-tossed boat, and they wanted to get onto this nearby island. As soon as they set on the land, they set the foot on the land, it began to sink. Why? They discovered too late that they had abandoned this safety of a boat for the whims of the back of a whale. What's the lesson to all of us? We have to be very careful not, in a sense, to abandon what's clear to us, morality, boundaries, appreciation of each other, recognizing the divineness in every human being, and not toss away all those proven perspectives of life for the shifting sands of what the modern world provides us with. And there is so many things going on that makes my head, twist around and go crazy. The lesson is we must be very careful what we embrace, because we may think that we're going out of our comfort zone and finding something more better and more strong. It turns out to be the whims of the back of a whale. It gives one little shuckle and forget about it. I want to tell you a little story to introduce a very important issue that I'd like to share with you today. Saving the life of someone is very, very important. And we're going to talk about organ donations because it is much more complex than signing a donor card. The conclusion of my little perspective is be careful not N-O-T to sign a donor card. We're going to talk very much pro the importance of donating a kidney and a little bit about this in a more deeper sense. And then we look forward to an interview with a special individual, a good friend of mine, who's going out of his way with his family to help save the life of Dr. Stuart Hissler, who desperately needs a kidney. Here's the story, though, and I want to thank Mr. Michael Soshnick, attorney at law, for sharing this beautiful story with me this past week. This gentleman is telling a story about a father whose son desperately needs this kidney. He's a young boy in his late teens, I imagine, and he needs a match. And he puts out the word, and a young boy, hears about this, and he goes to takes the swab, and he finds out he is the perfect match for this young man. And he calls up the father of the boy who needs the kidney. He says, "I'm willing to donate my kidney." So the man is excited, and he wants to meet him, of course. He wants to meet this young man to thank him in advance. So he comes to his house, he shows up at his house, and the father opens up the door, and he says, what are you here for? Who are you? Now the son had said to his father, I'm willing to donate my kidney to this other young man, and I want permission. And the man said, no, I do not want you to do this. He passed the information to the father of the other boy. So he came running to the house. He wanted to speak to the father. He opened up the door and he says, "Please, why?" The guy says, "I know who you are. Get away from my house. I don't want to see you, and you're not getting my son to give the kidney." He slammed the door. The guy felt, he must be emotional. He waited for a few minutes, rang the bell again, opened up the door. Same thing happened. "I don't want to talk to you. Get out of here." After the third time, the guy, before he left, he stuck his foot in the door, so the guy couldn't close the door. He said, "Okay, I accept this. You're not letting your son give me the kidney, but tell me why. Why aren't you wanting it? Why? It's a perfect match. Saving someone's life." He says, "I know who you are." He said, "What do you mean you know me?" He says, "I survived the concentration camps. I recognize who you are. You're a capo. You're a Jewish guy who was doing the bidding of the Nazis. And when I was taken into the camps, he said, I took my young son with me. For some miraculous reason, he was able to be with me and be in the work area of the camps. And one day the Nazis saw this young man, the young children, people like that age were killed right away. So they called you over, and the Nazi says, take this young boy and take him over to the building B, which of course was the place where they gassed the kids and gassed the people and cremated them. He says, you took my son. You took my son away, my son at that point, and now you want my son, this son, to go and save your son? Get out of here. So the man looked at him and said, I want to tell you the rest of the story. Yes, I was that capo. Yes, I was that one who took your son. But I didn't do anything to him. I hid him in a loft, in an upstairs little closet someplace. I fed him as best as I could throughout the terrible times, and we survived miraculously. And after the end of the war, I desperately looked for this young boy's father. I couldn't find him. So I adopted this child. You understand, dear friends, what was going on over here? This man had saved this boy. This boy was a perfect match because he was a brother of this very other boy. This man's boy who was willing to give his kidney was actually a brother, a real brother. So you see, dear friend, this story inspired me that I must go out on a campaign to help Dr. Stuart Hissler to find his match. And we're working together to publicize it in so many different ways. We're going to soon be interviewed with Mr. Steve, my friend Steve Mandelkorn, about this. But first I want to clarify a little bit about the Jewish position on organ donations, because it's a very complex issue of life and death, because it derives directly from the Jewish perspective on the sanctity of life and the role that our physical existence plays in the advancement of our spiritual selves. On the one hand, we have a sacred obligation to preserve human life. This is an overriding principle in Jewish law, so important that almost any other law can be broken for this reason. For example, we're allowed to break the Shabbos to take an injured person to the hospital. We can break Shabbos to drive to the hospital. We can eat pork if we're starving in the desert. On the other hand, Jewish law prohibits desecration of a dead body. A dead person's body, since it is once housed a holy soul, is to be treated with the utmost respect. Every part of the body must be buried, which is why you see that, these heart-wrenching images of people dutifully going around after a terrorist bombing, scraping up pieces of flesh and blood for burial. So how do we resolve these two principles? Organ donation is permitted in the case when an organ is needed for a specific immediate transplant. The organ donation is not necessarily limited to dead people. Someone who can afford to spare a kidney, for example, of course, may donate one in someone in need. Of course, yet there's other considerations to be made of the importance of taking this organ and immediately giving it to someone to save someone's life. And there's lots of issues that whether we're allowed to donate organs simply for medical research. This is a very important thing. So even when there is a specific immediate transplant, there's need for caution, because so oftentimes, in order to obtain organs as fresh as possible, this is talking about when the person has passed away, a doctor will remove the organ before the patient is actually dead, according to Jewish law. So that's another issue to be considered. We're not talking about kidneys now. The kidneys that come from a live person. A little bit more about this, my friends. So our discussion is really, you can put into four areas: living organ donations, donations from a person who's passed away, But we talk about the issues, the very difficult issues, when you talk about someone who's only brain dead. Can you now farm any of that person's organs? And non-vital donations of organs. So this is something. So the concept of giving things from a person, like a single kidney, perhaps a lobe of a liver, bone marrow, is absolutely around. In fact, there's an amazing organization called Renewal, that assists people from all across the world to help people go through the process to donate kidneys in patients in need. And to date, they have assisted thousands of donations that have saved thousands of lives. So again, I just wanted to lay out the foundation that in principle, these donations are allowed to save lives. But there are many issues when that person can be giving it. If a person's under normal circumstances giving a kidney, of course the person is well and can handle it, and is very little. In fact, it's important to note when we talk about kidneys, it's the actual living kidney donation is performed laparoscopically with minimal scarring. Donors usually return to their normal lifestyle within 2 to 4 weeks post-transplant. And in fact, this organization, Renewal, will help a person if they can't get to work. They're available to help to cover lost wages. Donors do not need to take lifelong medications following that, nor are they restricted with their diet. So again, I'm sharing this with you of making the distinction between a kidney donation and other things that come from a person, like a heart, and other things that the person has to be dead, has to have passed. But then the question is, what's the definition of death? Is it a brain death or not? And those are very, very, very serious things. So these organs that can only be retrieved after the donor is dead there has to be issues, very, very, very deep conversation about this. It can't be just simply said yes. So because we're not permitted to expedite death, even of a person who merely has a few moments left to live, to retrieve an organ in the hope of saving someone else. So these are very issue. So you see, most from cadaver organs are taken from those who are brain dead. That means whose hearts are still beating and whose blood is still circulating, even if it's powered by the ventilator, thus enabling all of the organs, including the heart, to remain viable. But the question is is this halachic death? Although the brain death, otherwise known as a neurological criteria, is accepted as a definition of death in the medical community, in Judaism, this remains a matter of debate. Some rabbis accept it, but many others do not. Furthermore, even rabbis who accept neurological criteria might seek additional tests to confirm this diagnosis, going beyond what might be the normal at a given medical facility. So I'm just bringing up the issues, the concerns. So now, the truth is that there are some organs, most notably, as we're talking today, kidneys, that can be retrieved even after cardiac death. On the face of it, there is a lot to talk about and a lot to share with you. My main point of bringing this up is be very careful in signing a donor card, because if, God forbid, a person is out of town or not close to their health proxy and all the other things that are important at that time, having a driver's license with those words, donating organs, can put a person in some very compromised Jewish halachic issues. So obviously non-vital organ donations are generally allowed to help save someone's life. But the main thing I bring this up again is the issue of the signing of the donor card. And also important to keep in mind that what I'm sharing with you is just a broad overview. I'm not giving any comprehensive or authoritative rulings here. For practical questions, please please consult a rabbi knowledgeable in both Jewish law and modern medicine. And may we all soon realize the final redemption when there'll be only no more illnesses and everybody be healthy and well. So at this point, dear friends, I'd like to share with you my interview with Stephen Mandelkorn, and it speaks for itself of the importance today for all of us to listen carefully as we try to spread the word to help Dr. Stuart Hissler, who has spent his life caring for others, and now we have to go out of our way to help care for him. Please. Dear friends, at this moment I'm taking a pause because I'm here to discuss and to share with you that we all have an opportunity to save someone's life. I'm talking about a Dr. Stuart Hissler. He's a doctor. We're going to hear all about him. He has spent his whole career taking care of others. Now, I come to you, I plead with you, let us continue to help bring life to him because he's in dire need of a kidney donor. And I'd like to bring to all of us today a good friend of mine, Mr. Stephen Mandelkorn, who will help us appreciate who Dr. Stuart Hissler is, and for all of us to consider the opportunity to perhaps take a swab, to become a kidney, to make a kidney donation. And before we bring on Stephen, I'd like you to please take a pencil or a pen and write down this email or telephone number where you can find out more information. This is in connection with Renewal, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to saving lives by helping kidney donors and recipients navigate all the aspects of the transplant process. So please, the phone number to call is 718-431-9831, extension 209. I will give you the email as well a little later. But let's welcome now Mr. Stephen Mandelkorn. Please, Steve, tell us more about Dr. Hissler.
Today is the day we commemorate the fast of Tammuz. On the fast day, let us resolve to heal Dr. Stuart Hissler as part of the Tikkun Olam, healing this broken world. Dr. Hissler has spent his whole career taking care of others, asking nothing in return. Now you can help him continue to take care of his beloved patients. Stuart Hissler is in dire need of a kidney donor. I have known Dr. Stuart Hissler for 43 years. He was an intern at Booth Memorial Hospital on my wife's floor where she was a head nurse. From the start, he was a very caring doctor who put his patients above everything else.
Thank you, Stephen. Really, and ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking to Steve, and he's helping us appreciate Dr. Stuart Hissler, who's in dire need of a kidney. I understand that your wife, Wendy, helped make their shidduch, bring Dr. Hissler and his dear wife together. How did that happen?
While he was working at Booth Memorial Hospital, my wife, Wendy, arranged for him to meet his eventual spouse, Marlene, who was a social worker at the hospital. She is Wendy's best friend. They speak every day and help each other in countless ways.
I have been speaking to Marlene, and really, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very special case, a very special Dr. Stuart Hissler, and I want to encourage everybody listening to help us find a kidney donor for this doctor. You can call my office at 516-739-3636. I'll put you in touch with the right people, or you can spread, if you'd like to have the brochure that gives you all the details to pass around through your social media. It'll be great. Please, Steve, a little more about this Dr. Hissler. You know, I understand you're personally involved with him.
Stu is also our personal physician, and we can attest to the care that he shows to his patients. He treats us and our family as if we were his family. He is an excellent diagnostician who uses his expertise to resolve medical issues. In addition to the normal medical issues, he has helped us through many other health issues.
Thank you so much. I must tell you, everybody, very rarely do we get an opportunity to help someone in this fashion. And Stephen, I do appreciate all you're giving us about the doctor. Did you where all of us are interested in knowing where did Dr. Hissler grow up, and where did he get his medical training?
Dr. Hissler is an excellent diagnostician. Dr. Hissler grew up in the Bronx. He went to NYU. He then went to medical school in Guadalajara. He finished at New York Medical College. He originally was in partnership with other doctors. He realized that he was better off on his own. For many years, he worked tirelessly on his own, treating patients as if they were part of his family, and when necessary, saving his patients' lives. Currently, he works for NYU Langone. He still works tirelessly to treat his patients and save their lives while receiving home dialysis.
Wow.
We actually see him every 3 months. My wife and I get the honeymoon suite. He spends a great deal of time with us each time and explains in great detail the best way to handle any of our problems. He has a sense of humor. He listens to my puns and jokes. He does tell me that I need to improve my delivery. I am hoping to give him the speediest delivery and the best delivery of all, a kidney, as soon as possible. That will be my best delivery to him.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And, dear friends, to help another person in need is a friend indeed. And thank you for being that, Stephen. I know that his wife is working tirelessly, bringing us all together and helping getting the word out there. And please tell us a little bit more about Marlene, the dear wife of Dr. Hissler.
He has been assisted by his wife, Marlene, who is his office manager. She works continually to help the patients with scheduling appointments, troubleshooting, making referrals to other doctors or medical facilities, and going beyond what is necessary to run the office. They are a dynamic team. Closer to home, Dr. Hissler saved the life of his beloved wife, Marlene, when she had breast cancer. She now wants to reciprocate and save his life. Recently, Dr. Hissler had to go on dialysis for his failing kidney. They decided that they did not want to go to a dialysis place for treatment. Instead, they wanted to do dialysis at home. Marlene dedicated herself to learn how to do dialysis at home. It is a time-consuming and stressful process. They are now doing it at home several days a week. They are also working at NYU Langone 3 days a week. They're actually working there today. This is a very tiring, stressful situation.
Wow, really. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you want to help or learn more about this, click this telephone number, 718-431-9831, extension 209, or you can send an email to letter R, 25489 at renewal.com. And a living kidney donation is performed laparoscopically with minimal scarring. And everyone should know that donors usually return to their normal lifestyle within 2 to 4 weeks post-transplant. And the organization running this is Renewal. And they're also available to cover lost wages if someone during that time has lost, and they'll be happy to help you with that. Donors do not need to take lifelong medication, nor are they restricted with their diet, so they can continue eating cholent and kugel and all kinds of good stuff. And the schmaltz herring, of course, as well, is also included. So, dear friends, I know that Dr. Stewart and Marlene have a beautiful daughter. Tell us a little bit about the daughter as well.
Yeah, her name is Rachel. She is an attorney. Dr. Hissler would like to see her get married, dance at a wedding, and be there for many other simchas. Stu and Marlene Hissler deserve to have a stress-free, happy life where they can continue for many years to help their patients and save lives. Maybe one of your listeners will have a life saved by Dr. Hissler. They say God works in mysterious ways. I know that some of Dr. Hissler's patients have volunteered to be tested to see if they can be a kidney donor, because Dr. Hisler has saved their lives. My wife wanted to donate her kidney, but she is not a viable candidate. Life is very strange. You never know how something you do today to help somebody comes back on a later date to help you.
I don't want to burst the bubble, Stephen, but I understand that with all this friendship you have with Dr. Hisler, somehow you're on different baseball teams. Can you help us a little bit more understand, what's going on over there? Can you explain this?
Yeah, one thing Dr. Hisler and I do not agree on, it's baseball teams. My family and I are diehard Met fans. He is a Yankee fan. I am sure that he will have no problem with my saying, "Let's go Stu," or LGS instead of "Let's Go Mets" as his theme song. Rabbi Pearl and I want to celebrate Dr. Stuart Hisler receiving a kidney. Please help us to realize our goal and do the ultimate mitzvah. Thank you again, Rabbi Pearl, for everything that you have done and continue to do for the community. You talk the talk and walk the walk. May you go from strength to strength.
Thank you, Stephen. And I won't hold it against you that you're a Met fan. And now, and every time I hear the word mitzvah, I'm going to say mitzvah, ultimate.
And don't forget ultimate instead of
ultimate. Yes. Yeah, you'll make a lot of people happy. Ladies and gentlemen, really, this is for everybody out there. And I want to thank you, Stephen, for coming today and sharing more about the doctor and his family. And may we all of us wish him a refuah shalema to be able to find his kidney and to be able to dance together with his dear wife Marlene at their daughter Rachel's wedding, Metz Hashem, at the right time. So thank you, everybody. And let us go from strength to strength. Again, one more time, please call this number, 718-431-9831, extension 209, to learn more about this. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Yes, thank you. That was really inspiring. And once again, we're taking time out to help publicize and share with the community. Dr. Stuart Hisler is in dire need of a kidney donor. And he has spent his entire career taking care of others. Now we can help him continue to take care of his own beloved patients and his family for many good years to come. So wishing Dr. Hisler long life and to be successful to find that kidney. And everybody out there, please spread the word, spread it to your own social media platforms. If you need some help on how to do that, feel free to call us at 516-739-3636 or email us at rabbipearl@chabad.minneola. And I'll be able to share with you ideas of how you can publicize it in your world, in your community. As part of our ongoing program, we also share a few moments what we call Sparks of Tanya. And I dedicate these thoughts to Dr. Gary Spitz, to Joshua, and many other friends and people who are joining us each week. And a big shout out to everybody out there. And an important part of the Tanya, which is really an important part of society today, is knowing that we have something deeper inside of us. We spoke a lot about animals, how they have an extra perception of deeper things and deeper realities. We too, ourselves, should know that we have a soul inside of us as well. We discussed this last week and the week before, and let's continue now. Does a soul have parts to it? Although a soul is unified, it is also divided into different parts. Depending on the angle with which we look at the soul, also known as the neshama, different divisions will appear. From a broad angle or a wide perspective, it's divided into 5 parts, the soul that we all have. In Hebrew, it's called nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida. From a closer view, it is very common to refer, as we're discussing, we talk about the 3 lower levels, and they are referred to as the pnimim, which means they reside within the body, while the other 2, chai and yechida, hover above. So in practical sense, you have a part of the soul in the biological area of a person. You have a part of the soul in our emotional, in our heart, and we have another part of the soul in our head. That's the intellectual side, and yet that's called the pneumium, that that reside within our personality. And then we have two parts of our soul that hover above us, known as Chaya and Yechida. Chaya means the living one, and is the place of our consciousness, while Yechida means oneness, where we're completely connected to God's unity. The lowest level of the soul is housed in the blood of a human being, giving it life to the body. That's called the nefesh. The nefesh is the contact point found within the blood that serves as a connection to the higher levels of the soul, all the way up to the highest level of Yechida. Close your eyes and simply feel your soul and its connection to the blood as it flows through your inner space. Starting with your feet, feel the life in every part of your body as you climb up to your head, where we usually feel, most life. Figuratively, we also learn that the neshama level is located in the brain. Ruach is the heart, and the nefesh is in the liver. So how does my soul stay within my physical body? Interesting, right? How doesn't it fly away? It's obvious that our souls are connected to our body. I can recall so many times in life since I was a kid where I felt something within me that was on fire. I was so inspired that I forgot all about where I was physically, while I was totally tuned into something so much more ethereal and spiritual. That generally happened when I stood at Farbrengens and listened to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I just didn't feel myself physically. Now, if those of you have ever seen pictures or videos of those events at 770 Eastern Parkway, people were squashed, and I was on one of those rows and moving back and forth, but you didn't feel it. You didn't feel it. You were on another level. Your spirituality came to the forefront. Sometimes people have it when they're playing music, listening to an amazing concert, focusing on the crackling flames of a bonfire, or even lying down on the ground and feeling, just feeling, looking and feeling the world around us. And so too, other people feel this sometimes. They have this inner awakening in their life. It could be an uplifting song at the Shabbos meal, or some inspirational songs, and where as I share with you today, I felt this holiness when I was with the Rebbe. So there is something inside of us. But the question is, how the soul stays within the body is a very mysteriously complex Kabbalistic topic that can be discussed for years to really even get a glimpse of the true understanding. It parallels the equally complex question of how God, who is infinite, can also exist within our physical body. This process is referred to as contraction, tzimtzum, and its study, which we will discuss in future programs, is primarily focused on the initial steps of transformation from God's infinite light to something that is contracted to be tangible, accessible enough for all of us to experience this in this world. But for the moment today, we just focus more on the point of connection between the body and the soul. As we've discussed, the levels of the soul are like a chain. And by the way, the idea of recognizing that chain is very much the reason why, one of the reasons, the deeper reasons why, if you ever attended a Jewish wedding, it's an important part is the ring, when the chassan, the groom, puts the ring on the finger of the bride. Besides its legal aspect, the halachic side of it, it also represents that the man and the woman, the husband and wife, the boy and the girl, the bride and the bridegroom, are committing themselves to the chain, the link that they are to thousands and thousands of years beforehand. So as he places that ring on her finger, that's that connection, that soul. Because as we know, under the chuppah, 3 generations of souls of loved ones come there. There's a combination of physical and spiritual. The young man presents the ring around her finger. She has preceded that by going around the chosn, around the room 7 times. She presents 7 protective rings, spiritual rings. He presents a physical ring. And the chuppah that around both of them is the ring that Hashem provides around them. As we know, marriage is three partnership, the husband, the wife, the mother and the father, and of course the Almighty God that brings the holiness to what marriage is all about. And if you think about this, while under the chuppah, she goes around the young man, as in the traditional weddings. He puts the ring on her finger. What happens during the rest of the celebration? Everybody, they are stationary, and everybody dances around in circles, around the man, and around the woman, by the chosn and kala. So there's a constant connection of circle, part of this long chain. So the levels of the soul are like a chain. Nefesh, being the lowest level, and therefore the closest part of the soul to the physical body, whether in the blood or whether it's in the biological side of a person. The blood too has levels extending from the very physical to much more ethereal. The most spiritual side of the physical blood is the fact that it's warm. Where does it get warm from? That's a reflection of the spirituality that actually rests in the physical blood of a person. All within that nefesh, the most ethereal level of the blood is the meeting point between the body and the soul. So the warmth of the blood is a reflection of the soul, that nefesh that's inside the blood. Since the highest level of the soul are also connected to the nefesh, they too are linked through an ongoing connection to the blood flowing through our bodies. Another way to understand the connection between the body and the soul is through our glass blower analogy. Since God is constantly blowing our soul into us from the neshama, through the ruach, then to the nefesh, the soul remains constantly alive and connected to our body. This is not another method. Both approaches work together, being that they are both describing the chain that connects the neshama down to the ruach and then to the nefesh within our blood. So what we're learning over here is that each of us have a spirituality inside of ourselves. And even though we may give it a general term, it really is the neshama that's being constantly blown into us, connecting to our body. And that is why we eternally appreciate the life that God gives us. And that is why, especially today, that we've dedicated time and focus on helping Dr. Stuart Hissler to be given a longer gesunte Jahren for more life, with hopefully to find the right kidney donor. But all of us should appreciate what we have, the blood that we have, the warmth that we have, the spirituality that we have, and how to bring that and to use it into a most positive manner. During our Shabbos services, we had yesterday, we had a wonderful Kiddush in honor of Mark Scherer. It was in honor of his Jewish birthday and also in memory of his grandmother and grandfather. And it was wonderful presentations, and I couldn't hold myself back and being moved to see Brad Scherer, that's the son of Mark, speak about his father. And I saw in like in living flesh, so to speak, the continuity of this chain that I'm talking about, that parents can pass on meaningful education, meaningful focus, criteria that brings goodness to so many people in so many ways. So Brad didn't speak about, his early bird specials in Florida or Club Med vacations and all the other things, as nice as they are. He spoke about his dear father teaching him in a lively, beautiful way of being kind, giving charity, the time that his father is spending with him and helping him now in his career of life. I mean, I'm telling you, I started my conversation on Shabbos morning. I said, before I get into the the typical sermon and the conversations that we have, I said, listen, let's just pause for a moment, look at each other. We're in the synagogue. We come together once a week. Let's appreciate the friendship, the community feeling that we have, the caring we have, the health that we have. Never take anything for granted. And I encourage everybody, I appeal to everybody, please consider going to shul on Shabbos morning. You're welcome to come to our shul. Spend these 2 or 3 hours away from the world and reacclimate ourselves to the warmth that exists inside of us. As we're learning today, the warmth is really a physical reflection of the spirituality that we have that starts and permeates our entire personality. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of how real the parts of the soul are inside of us, and we become more aware of it. I mentioned earlier on, when I was a child, I loved going to the aquariums and seeing these amazing monsters that God has created, of the seas, and seeing things beyond our own. A person must spend some time coming to a synagogue as well. Not to compare my shul to an aquarium, but just like in the aquarium, you get to focus, or you go to a museum, you get to focus on history and past civilizations. A person becomes front row and center with themselves when we spend an hour, whatever it may be, in study, in prayer, and in joy, a few l'chaims, to be able to see, to connect to that warmth that we all have within each other, for each other, and for the world around us. That is really what life is all about, to have a purpose. The question we brought up, I mentioned earlier on, I'm focused on animals and the spirituality of animals, and we learned this week how Bilam, who had gone out there to curse, ended up giving blessings. Well-known story in the Torah. But on the way to doing this, he ends up having a conversation with his donkey. A donkey starts to talk. It was a miracle. Furthermore, we know that this ability to this donkey was put into this world just before the first Shabbos of the world. When God created the world, he created everything on the first 6 days. And just in the moment before the Shabbos began, amongst the many things created was the ability for this donkey to speak. Now, why did we have to have Bilam, when he was going out to curse and finding out that he's not going to be able to curse but only bless? He could have done that. He could have learnt that lesson without the donkey. Why? How did the donkey speaking and showing that the donkey was able to be aware of angels and he wasn't? Why is that part of the story? The answer, my friends, is every one of us are given the power to speak. I don't mean just only speak, but abilities, talents, connection. God gives every one of us a tremendous, tremendous powers to be like a star, to shine. It's not just the sun and the moon that we see close, but every one of us is a star. But when a person misuses that, she's wasting their entire life. The whole purpose of life is mission, a mission of purpose. Through love, through caring, through building, through family, through production, through sharing one's abilities to help thousands of people, whatever a person can do. So along comes Bilam, who was a prophet. He was a prophet, in the true sense of the word, who had the ability to use his ability to bring goodness to this world, went out on a mission to go and curse, to use his ability of prophecy and ability to speak to bring negativity to the world. God said, I'm going to show you. You are lower than the donkey. The donkey, who has no intellect and no choice, is able to speak and do what is right. You, who have an intellect and you have the power of choice, and you're going to use your speech for what? For negativity. I'm going to show you. So when a person misplaces their godly blessings of talents and abilities, we must learn from the donkey. Is that what God gives to us? To be able to misuse it, to harm people, all the things that we see sadly in the world today. So, this is your host, Rabbi Pearl. I want to say thank you so much for joining us and learning about the soul, learning about what it means to help other people. People say, oh, I don't know who Dr. Stewart is. I don't know him. He's not part of my family. I don't know where he is. Doesn't matter. We're all part of one human race here, where we must care for each other. We're all created in the image of God, the divine image of God. Yes, each of us have our particular missions, and the differences are our strengths, as we've discussed many times. But the key is, let us be kind. Let us use our abilities. And when a person looks at us and say, that's a human being speaking, not a donkey. This is your host, Rabbi Pearl, wishing you a fantastic week. Be healthy, be well. A reminder that today is a Jewish fast day, the beginning of the 3 weeks, and there's 21 days of sadness. We look forward to be transposed and transformed to 21 days of great celebration. A great week and an easy fast.